Hey everybody, this is Minion Soldier and this is ship updates. Now, actual ship updates we don't really have a lot, but for some of the ships that have been released, there is an interesting situation developing. So 3.12.1 is out. It is live. It is on the servers right now. So if you're logging in, as of the recording of this video, the event had not kicked off yet, but if you get onto the servers, you might notice a modest performance increase, at least server side. Now, of course, that can be attributed to the removal of Delamar. Delamar is off the map. It is gone. Levski is no more. And also, when you're logging in with your character, you may notice that I don't have crime stat anymore. Even though I have carried over my money and some of the items that I previously owned, my crime stat has been erased. So if you're worried about having crime stat and going into this event and what impact that could have on your gameplay and whether or not you could participate in this event, it has been removed. Or at least for me it has. I shouldn't speak for everyone, but that is the perception that I have. Logically they probably would want to remove it for everyone so that everyone can enjoy the event. And they go into a little bit of detail on the website in regards to the event. So the event write-up is, it's a little heavy in the lore. It kind of details the basic framework of, from what I can see, the two missions that we're getting for this, which is one, you have to go rescue some cargo off of some downed ships, and then the next one, you take on the enemy Idris, so kind of like a two-stage thing. It doesn't really outline player rewards though, but we'll get to that in a little bit. What it does, of course, lead you to is another sale page, which is where you can buy all the ships that you will use to fight the XenoThreat. Now, none of the prices are particularly amazing. There's nothing out there you go, wow, that's a real discount. I got to snap that thing up. There is a bit of a war bond sale for Retaliators and Vanguard Wardens, but the savings is not all that much, and it's not like it adds LTI to something. So if you want to get, an upgrade to a Retaliator, you'll probably get a Retaliator at a bit of a discount if you're using fresh money. But if you want LTI, which is lifetime insurance for any new people to the game, you're basically going to have to use a ship that already has LTI and then upgrade using that to this new Retaliator. Now, truth be told, this is basically a bomber patch. Now, if you own a Harbinger, an Eclipse, a Retaliator, or even a Gladiator, and if you don't think that that ship is a real ship in Star Citizen, it actually is. It's the oh yeah, that thing ship of Star Citizen, because everyone forgets that it exists. This is actually, in a way, it's kind of a good opportunity to test your torpedoes against the biggest, player-owned, direct combat behemoths that you can have in the Star Citizen universe. Unfortunately, CIG is kind of holding back on letting players control the Javelins or the Idris, and I would say that having those ships under player control would provide a much more fruitful test for balance purposes and, just for players to kind of get used to the tactics and the ideas of using these ships. But of course, CIG has in the past vowed that players won't get their hands on their Idrises or Javelins until Squadron 42 comes out. And sometimes I suspect that's the driving reason behind why so many players are kind of like, no, I want Squadron 42 to come out. It's because you can get your hands on your Javelin or your Idris, maybe. But I'm once again, everyone knows that I'm a little bit biased against single player games, and that is that bias kind of playing out there. Sorry. Overall, is it going to be a realistic test of, torpedoes versus capital ships? Yes, in terms of damage done and your expectation as to, how many torpedoes is it going to take one of these ships down. But then again, these might simply be values that are going to be expressed only in Squadron 42, and the values that we get in Star Citizen are going to be slightly different. Now, I've talked about this before, talking about the F8 Lightning and how, things vary between a single player and a multiplayer game, and how you have to take other things into consideration for an MMO. So it's entirely possible that these ships might be represented in a stronger or weaker state than they will be in the hands of players. So the player-owned versions of these ships are likely going to be very different. And remember that there's probably still many, many tweaks to go before these ships hit the live universe. So I wouldn't use this as an expectation or a baseline, like, okay, it takes 10 Class 9 torpedoes to take down a Javelin. That's what it's going to be. Plan around that. I would say be very, very careful making such assumptions. I think that we are going to see some very interesting moments, and CIG is going to use that to build or modify what capital ship combat is going to be. I'm a little disappointed that players weren't able to kind of get behind the wheel of these capital ships during this event. I think that would have provided us a lot more data and a lot more information. I'm a little bit skeptical of how they're going to be represented in this event, whether they're just going to be lumbering around at absolutely minimum speed and just kind of engaging in these slugfests with players, or if they're actually going to be competently maneuvering these ships and keeping them moving and at a fair pace, forcing players to, not just circle strafe them to death, but actually think about how they're going to engage them. It's going to be very interesting to see how this is all going to play out, and certainly bombers, this is where they are supposed to shine. So in a way, this is kind of our mini patch. This is going to be our time to shine, so to speak. So it's going to be very interesting to see how all of that plays out. Now, you might be thinking something is missing from this event, and I've been digging around, but I haven't found it yet. So the rewards for the event, I have not been able to turn them up, and I've been looking all over the place. I found a write-up on the missions and how you do them, but even going through the website, it's very prominent, go here to gear up, and it goes to a sale page and, so on and so forth. But I was kind of looking around going so what do we get? Do we get some cool paint schemes for our ships and stuff like that? Because I think that this is kind of a golden opportunity for something like this to, it doesn't need to be player power attached to it, but just some cool lore items or conversational items that you can attach to your ship or your character that say, hey, I was at this big event and, maybe I've got a story to tell. Things like that. But I would assume, being that this is such a golden opportunity for it, it's just that those items aren't ready. And even when I look at the write-up page for the event itself, not the sale page, it seems a little unfinished. And not unfinished in the way it's like, oh, they didn't spell check it, or oh, they missed a comma or something like that. They're not using Grammarly. It seems like it is only in the very beginning stages. And to be honest, this is an event that could go on for the rest of the patch, or even the rest of the year. They could continue on chapters and chapters into the story. So the fact that there aren't such items being displayed to us now, at least that I've seen, doesn't mean that they aren't coming. So I would definitely look out for that. And if I was working at CIG and something like that wasn't planned, I would definitely get on top of that before my error became public. Now, as luck would have it, we can talk about one thing in particular, which is the Retaliator. I was lucky, I guess, in the anniversary sale, and I just happened to pick up a Retaliator, and all of a sudden here, a few months later, we're getting some use out of it. Now, if you're going to read into that I have some kind of foreknowledge of this event, I do not. But what I did have, and I mentioned it when I purchased the ship, was the fact that, we've seen capital ships now being brought into the game for certain special events. Of course, these were just static, but bigger and larger ships are coming into the game, and so I wanted to have something to take those out, or at least take those on, or at the very, very least, give them a moment of pause, something to think about. And so here it is, the Retaliator. Now, overall, I realize that there have been historically a lot of gripes having to do with the ship, and I know you might say, well, it's Star Citizen. When do they not gripe about any ship? And I am one of the primary offenders in that area. But I have to admit that the interior, whilst not ideally laid out, does come with a lot of conveniences and a lot of potential storage areas in the future for things like guns, armor, grenades, utility items, things that we in the very near future will not be able to simply pull out of thin air, things that we will need to store on our ship. And that's something to consider when you're looking at ships to potentially buy. Some ships come with these facilities, some don't. And these are not, jump seats. These are gun storage racks, and plenty of them. These are things that in the very near future you're going to have to think about. Now, I know I've been preaching on this for years, but now it is actually coming to fruition. In the next few patches, this is going to be the reality that everyone's going to have to deal with. Now, the Retaliator itself also comes with 5 defense turrets, 2 on the belly and 3 on the back. So this is something that really hasn't seen a lot of use in a lot of ships, but this is something that in this event and in potential future events is probably you're going to get a lot of use out of. The idea of turrets defending these ships, remember, if you're in a torpedo ship and you're making torpedo runs on a capital ship, you're probably not going to haul in on basic SCM speed and, just drop your torpedoes slowly and then slowly fly away. So things like this to help, keep fighters or smaller ships away from you, while you may look at these turrets and say, they're not exactly adequate or they could be better, the truth of it is if you're just trying to chase things away or keep them at distance, whilst you make an attack run, they're not all that bad. And so I think that while some of the earlier versions of the Retaliator, where all of those were size 1 weapons, were, somewhat inadequate, I think that stepping into the Retaliator is honestly, I think, stepping into this event in a pretty ideal place, a pretty ideal position for testing. Now, while I did say that I doubt that we're going to get any concrete numbers out of this that we can use into the future, I do think for basic theoretical tactics, kind of sitting there and going, moving beyond the theory and into actual practical experience is going to be a great thing. This is going to be huge. So having a ship like this, having a torpedo-based ship is this really is your patch. This is your day to shine. Of course, there are going to be other ships that are going to be able to take out javelins and Idrises, but this is the ship that was built to do it, or this amongst others like the Eclipse and the Harbinger. This is what these ships are really meant for, and so this is really going to be their time to shine. It's no longer going to be waiting for the odd caterpillar to wander in front of your guns, or the one guy who's still flying the Starfarer, an occasional Carrack here or there, or somebody who's just trying to use a reclaimer to get some background footage for a video. These are no longer going to be, the ships that you're out hunting for. Now your targets are more or less going to be coming to you. So this really is that moment that people have been waiting for years and years and years with these ships, is a chance to actually test out some of their ideas and see what works and what doesn't work. And I do have to say that I think that torpedo-based ships are going to really have their time to shine in the future. Of course, we are getting to test these ships. The Javelin and the Idris, they're not staying, and I doubt that they're going to put them in player hands, even though I would think that that is going to be an ideal. But the truth of it is that, this is kind of going to be a period in Star Citizen where you are going to see the ascension of the medium to larger size ships, and potentially start to really see the decline of fighters. We've talked about that in other videos in depth, but when you're looking at a sale like this and you're seeing ships like the Eclipse, like the Harbinger, like the Retaliator, I think that these are ships that combat-wise, are going to be very, very frightening for a lot of people out there in the Star Citizen universe. Your Reclaimer owners, your Carrack owners, your Caterpillar owners, things like that. And so if you've been on the fence, now would be a good time to remember that any ship that you own in Star Citizen, unless it's, core to your game package, you needn't own forever. You might have to wait a quarter to get an LTI token back or something like that, but ultimately there really aren't any permanent ships in Star Citizen. And if you've been thinking about this might be an ideal opportunity to dip your feet in and test out whether or not you like these kind of torpedo type ship game, how they play in the persistent universe. Test out a few ideas and see what you're actually going to like. Maybe you're going to hate it, maybe you're going to love it. But these torpedoes, I kind of feel like they're going to be fun. So, in the very near future, we might be seeing a video entitled Bombs Away. Hopefully very, very soon. Anyways, that's the show for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.